Imagine that in the final seconds of your life, you call your best friend, but you don't say, "Help me." You leave the line open, and you say the one thing that exposes the person killing you. "What did you put in my drink?" Those were the last words of a 25-year-old expectant mother, and they would become the evidence that convicted her killer. This is the story of Jade Benning. It doesn't begin with a gun. It begins with a romantic date night, a happy set of photos, and a drink that tasted strange. If you watch this video till the end, you'll understand the darker side of human nature. You'll see how far a person will go to protect a perfect image, and you'll see a mother who even in her final moments was brave enough to speak the truth. "9:29 at night. A pregnant young woman dials her best friend, but what her friend hears through the phone isn't a greeting. It's the sound of a crime unfolding. Nashville, Tennessee, the evening of February 25th, 2023. Nigella Jackson gets a call from her closest friend, Jade Benning. But something is very wrong. Jade isn't speaking to her directly. She leaves the line open, letting Nigella overhear everything happening inside the apartment. Jade's voice is panicked. She asks the same question over and over again. "What did you put in my drink?" Nigella listens, her heart pounding. She hears her friend say she can't feel her legs, that she can't walk straight. She hears Jade tell her boyfriend to turn out his pockets to show her. But no one knew that these would be the last words Nigella would ever hear from her friend. Over 6 minutes, Jade's voice grows more and more slurred, harder to understand. And then the line goes dead. Nigella calls back, frantic, but no one answers. At 9:38, a 911 call goes out from that very apartment. The caller isn't Jade. It's the man she had just accused only minutes earlier. Sometimes the victim knows exactly what's happening to them, even when no one believes them in time. And sometimes their final words become the strongest evidence of all. But to understand why that call is so chilling, we have to go back to the beginning, to the woman on the other end of the line, a young chef with a dream and a child on the way. Before she became a name on the news, Jade Benning was just a girl who loved to cook and who was about to become a mother. Jade grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas, with one clear passion from early on: cooking. She graduated from culinary school in 2020, then moved to Nashville to chase her dream of becoming a head chef. There, she worked as a chef at a restaurant and launched her own catering business on the side. Jade lived through her relationships. She talked to her mother, Bridget, almost every day, and she had a best friend from the age of 6, Nigella, close as sisters. Those who knew Jade later described her with one line: she was the kind of person who never met a stranger. She didn't care whether you were rich or poor. She could meet someone and become their friend the same day. Then, in November of 2022, a pregnancy test showed 2 lines. Jade was going to be a mother. On November 3rd, a doctor confirmed it, a baby girl. She named her Ivy. She told her family. Her mother began buying baby supplies. Jade took ultrasound photos, smiling, and started planning a baby shower. A whole future was opening up in front of her. But there was one person who did not share that joy: the baby's father, a man the whole world looked at and saw as perfect. Now, from the outside, he had everything: fame, education, a spotless image. And that's exactly what makes this story so frightening. Jade's boyfriend was named Blaze Taylor. His father, a well-known football coach. Blaze himself had been a star, playing for a university team and serving as captain 4 years running. But he was most impressive off the field. Blaze earned both a bachelor's and a master's degree before his final year, a rare achievement. He did charity work, founded a nonprofit to help underprivileged kids. Someone once said that one day he could run a football program, and even joked that he might run for president. By February of 2023, Blaze was working as a scout for a professional football team, a man who had it all. But behind that perfect image was a different truth. When Jade told him she was pregnant, Blaze was not happy. According to what was later presented in court, He wanted her to end the pregnancy. He didn't want to be involved. He didn't want the child to ever know his face. To him, an unplanned child wasn't a joy. It was a threat to the image he had worked so hard to build. A perfect public image can be the most dangerous thing of all, because some people will go and do anything to protect it. And as Jade's due date drew closer, the threat to that image grew larger, because there was something Blaze was desperately trying to keep hidden. For months, Blaze kept his secret, but there was one thing he couldn't stop: time. Jade and Blaze met on a dating app in early 2022. When Jade found out she was pregnant in November, the two of them weren't even officially a couple. Jade made her position very clear. She would keep the baby, whether Blaze was involved or not. On November 6th, she sent him a message saying she would respect his wishes, that she wouldn't tie him down, and that she would love this child unconditionally, with or without him. But she left the door open, giving him the date of her next prenatal appointment in case he changed his mind. He didn't come. The two cut off contact until New Year's, when Blaze suddenly reached out again. Ever the optimist, Jade welcomed it. They began spending time together again. But beneath the surface, Blaze's position hadn't changed. He still didn't want to admit he was the father, and even asked for a paternity test after Ivy was born. At his request, Jade kept the pregnancy quiet, sharing it only with those closest to her. And now a deadline was approaching. Jade was about to enter her final trimester. She was planning 2 baby showers right around her birthday, only days away. Soon, the whole world would know. For most people, a baby on the way is a joy. But for some, desperately guarding a secret, it's a ticking time bomb. And on February 25th, just days before that secret would come to light, Jade planned a romantic evening. She had no idea it would be the last night of her life. That evening began with the most beautiful things: a home-cooked dinner, a painting, fresh-baked cookies, and a final set of happy photos. On the evening of February 25th, Jade set up a date right in her own apartment. 2 blank canvases, paint, a dinner, and cookies straight from the oven. She captured each moment of the night. At 6:48, dinner was ready. Around 7:30, Nigella and a friend dropped in for a couple of minutes to pick up a portion of the Alfredo Jade had cooked. At that point, Jade was completely normal, happy, relaxed. At 8:29, Jade photographed the 2 paintings in progress. Hers was full of color with uplifting words. Blaze's was a black background. Both were meant to decorate baby Ivy's nursery. At 9:10, the photo showed the paintings nearly finished. But hidden beneath those moments, something horrifying had already begun. Between 9:24 and 9:28, the two took their final photos, posing beside the paintings, then happy, affectionate moments together in the kitchen. And here's the most chilling detail of the entire story. According to the medical examiner, the dose of cocaine had entered Jade's body roughly 30 minutes before she collapsed, which means that in those very happy photos, the poison was already working its way through her. She smiled for the camera with no idea. Just 1 minute after that last photo, at 9:29, Jade dialed Nigella. The call would send her friend racing back to the apartment in a panic. Sometimes the most frightening moment isn't when the tragedy happens, it's the moment right before, when the victim is still smiling with no idea what's coming. And now, we've returned to that fateful call from the start of the story. But this time, we understand everything that led to it. Listen again to what Nigella heard. Nigella sat in her car, the phone pressed to her ear, and she heard her friend bit by bit realize she was being killed. On the open line, Jade wasn't speaking to Nigella, she was speaking to Blaze. Her voice was panicked, then more and more slurred by the minute. "You're scaring me. Then I know you put something in my drink. Then I know my drink tasted funny." Nigella heard every word. She heard Jay say she couldn't feel her legs. She heard Jay tell Blaze to empty his pockets. Show me. Show me what's in your pockets." Jade repeated the accusation again and again that he had done this, that he had done it so something would happen to the baby. But here's what Nigeria noticed most, and what haunts the most. Throughout that entire call, Blaze barely said anything. Nigeria heard him say only two things. First, that Jade was the one scaring him, and second, a denial that he had anything in his pockets. That was all. Nigeria didn't hear him ask if Jade was okay, didn't hear him frantically calling for help, didn't hear him try to reassure her or help her. While her friend was slipping away, the man right beside her was almost silent. Sometimes what says the most about a person isn't what they do. It's what they don't do. In the moment, they should have acted. Then the line went dead. Nigeria called back frantic, and when someone finally answered, a strange sequence of events began, starting with a contradictory 911 call. When Blaze called 911, he said his girlfriend was having an allergic reaction, but there was one important detail he never mentioned. At 9:38, Blaze called emergency services. He said Jade was having a sudden, severe allergic reaction, but his voice was fumbling, struggling even to give the apartment's address. Even so, the paramedics found their way. They arrived at 9:50. They found Jade face down on the bed in the main bedroom. She had no pulse. Only 12 minutes had passed since the start of that call. But it was already too late. Jade was rushed to the hospital. But the story Blaze told was missing a very large piece. At the hospital, police asked him what had happened. He kept insisting it was an allergic reaction. But there was one thing he forgot to mention, both to the dispatcher and to the police, that Jade was nearly 6 months pregnant. Then the test results came back, and they turned everything upside down. Jade had no signs of an allergic reaction, no rash, no itching, no swelling. What was in her body was a large dose of cocaine. A lie often shows itself not in what is said, but in what is left out, the details that only someone who knows the truth has a reason to hide. While doctors fought to save Jade's life, her friends and family began arriving at the apartment, and what they found was something that sent a chill down their spines. When Jade's loved ones stepped into the apartment, they expected the signs of a chaotic emergency. Instead, they found a room that was strangely clean. Jade's mother drove 6 hours from Little Rock to Nashville in a panic. She arrived in the middle of the night. Jade was on a ventilator. Getting no clear answers from police, the family asked a few close friends to go to the apartment and try to understand what had happened. This group put on gloves, they took photos, shot video, documenting the scene as they found it. But the apartment was unusually clean. The pots and pans from the pasta had been washed. The leftovers were neatly packed on the counter. Everything looked as if it had just been carefully tidied. Then two details caught their eye and made the whole group go cold. The first was Jade's Blink security camera. Normally, it sat on the kitchen counter next to the fridge, facing into the home. But now, they found it on the windowsill, turned to face out towards the street. A pointless position, as if someone had deliberately aimed it the other way. The second one was on the comforter where Jade had been found. There was a pink stain, but around it was a larger dried ring, as if another liquid had been poured on top to dilute the original stain. Sometimes the most suspicious thing isn't a messy scene, it's a scene that's too clean, because that cleanliness sometimes is the trace of an effort to erase the traces. But the tragedy wasn't over, because just days later, Jade's family would face the most painful decision of their life. Baby Ivy went first, and then Jade. And the day she passed was the very day she had been born. The amount of oxygen Jade lost before she was resuscitated was too much. After several days, the doctors delivered the most painful news. She would never wake up. Her daughter, baby Ivy, had not survived. Days earlier, she passed on February 27th. On March 6, 2023, the family made the final decision. They took Jade off the ventilator. And here is one of the most heartbreaking details of the whole story. That day, the day Jade passed, was her 25th birthday. A woman leaving the world on the very day she entered it, taking with her the daughter she never got a chance to hold. The medical examiner ruled the cause of death as a cocaine overdose. But she left one thing open. The manner of death was listed as undetermined. In other words, science could prove what killed Jade, but the autopsy alone couldn't prove who put it in her body. Her family and friends were certain she had been murdered, but certainty alone wasn't enough. Justice is sometimes caught between what we know in our hearts and what we can prove on paper. And that gap, for a grieving family, is its own kind of torture. For over a year, no one was charged, but investigators didn't give up. And in the end, it was Jade's own final words that would lead to a trial. More than a year later, Blaze Taylor was arrested. And at trial, the most important witness was the one who was no longer alive, Jade. In March of 2024, a grand jury formally indicted Blaze Taylor. He was arrested in Utah, where he was working in football coaching and had just been hired for a new position at a major university. He pleaded not guilty. The trial took place in mid-2026. In the heart of the entire case was Jade's final words. The question she repeated over the phone: "What did you put in my drink?" The prosecution argued that Blaze was determined that the baby would not be born and that his secret would not come out. But then, a witness delivered testimony that sent a shock through the courtroom. According to the prosecution, a witness testified that she once had to talk Blaze out of it when he considered slipping a drug into the drink of another woman, also pregnant, to force her to miscarry without her knowing. If true, it revealed a frightening pattern. For its part, the defense fought back hard. They argued that Jane had taken the cocaine herself. They attacked her character and pointed to a series of holes in the investigation. And those holes were real. Police had failed to properly secure the scene. Many people had come and gone, moving items. The building security footage, which could have captured any movement in and out of the apartment, had been deleted before investigators secured it. The glass Jade had used was gone. Here it must be said fairly. Blaze Taylor has always maintained his innocence, and in America, a person is presumed innocent until proven guilty. So what followed was the verdict of a jury, after weighing all the evidence. A trial isn't only a battle over evidence. Sometimes it's also a battle over how the victim will be remembered. And Jade's family had to sit and listen to their daughter being smeared day after day. After days of tension, the jury finally withdrew to deliberate. They didn't need as long as anyone expected. After only about 2 hours, the jury returned, and their verdict answered the question Jade's family had waited 3 years to hear. On July 1st, 2026, the jury found Blaze Taylor guilty on all 4 counts. Second-degree murder in the death of Jade, first-degree premeditated murder in the death of baby Ivy, and 2 counts of felony murder. The jury recommended a sentence of life in prison. Under Tennessee law, that means Blaze would have to serve at least 51 years before he could be considered for parole. But the legal story wasn't fully closed. Right after the verdict, Blaze's lawyer announced that he still maintained his innocence, and he would appeal. The formal sentencing was set for September 9th, 2026. In America, a verdict can always be appealed to higher courts. So this is the conclusion of a jury, and the legal battle may well continue for years. But even as the proceedings drag on, one thing is already clear. Don't let the name of the convicted man be what you remember most about this story. Remember Jade Benning, a talented chef, a friend who, in Nigea's words, never met a stranger, a mother who loved her daughter unconditionally even before he got to meet her. And remember that Jade herself, in her final moments, was lucid and brave enough to speak the truth. She left the phone line open, and because of that, her voice though she is gone, still rang out in that courtroom. 3 years later, it was still heard. At the trial, Jade's mother stood up and spoke about her daughter, about her radiant personality, about the work she loved, and about how excited she had been to welcome baby Ivy. After the verdict, the family said they felt some measure of relief, that justice at last had come. So what do you think about this case? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you think the story of Jade and baby Ivy deserves to be remembered, leave a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next story.